Politics, in the end, is nothing more than a long-running drama, one you can watch endlessly without ever getting bored. The old saying is right. A child only gets fed when it cries. Stay quiet, stay obedient, and you starve. On the international chessboard, small countries that behave too well are destined to become nothing more than background props for someone else's photo op. The story really began just a couple of days ago. Southeast Asia was still rubbing its eyes in disbelief when Cambodia's new Prime Minister, Hun Manet, often dubbed by Western media as a political crown prince, appeared on national television during prime time. His expression was stone cold, his tone unmistakably firm. In a single statement, he shook the entire region. Cambodia would reassess its strategic relationships, including with China, and was open to allowing the United States access to the Ream Naval Base. One sentence. That was all it took. It landed like a boulder dropped into already turbulent waters. Southeast Asia froze. In Beijing, tea was likely spat across polished tables. And then, less than 48 hours later, a massive Chinese military transport plane touched down at Phnom Penh International Airport. People held their breath. Would it be elite commandos? Crates of shiny new weapons? At the very least, a few suitcases stuffed with crisp dollar bills? No. What rolled out of the cargo hold were tents, tarpaulins, blankets, dried rice, and emergency rations. Anyone with even a little life experience could feel how off this was. It was like watching a younger brother get beaten black and blue by the neighbor, call his older brother for help, only to hear, "The number you have dialed is currently unavailable." Then, the moment the younger brother threatens to cut ties, to open the door and let the older brother's enemy into the house, the older brother suddenly shows up, awkward smile, bandages in hand. "Sorry, I was busy. Here, take these. Patch yourself up. Eat some rations. Don't be mad. Don't go with that other guy." That aid flight was not an act of brotherly love. It was an emergency brake slammed so hard it scorched the road. It didn't prove how much China cared about Cambodia. It proved something else entirely. China had begun to feel fear. Fear of what? Fear that Cambodia might actually do what it had just said. To understand why Hun Manet's words carried such crushing weight, we need to rewind a bit. The trigger was the border clash with Thailand. When Thai war elephants trampled Cambodia at the frontier, tensions spiked. Hun Manet reached out to Beijing, his longtime patron, the one who had poured in money, built roads, and spoken endlessly of shared destiny. What came back was silence, or worse, hollow diplomatic platitudes. The reason was obvious. China didn't want to offend Thailand, a larger, more valuable economic partner. In the cold arithmetic of interests, Cambodia was expendable, and so the younger brother was left to bleed. That betrayal stung, and Hun Manet chose not to swallow it quietly. Instead, he went all in. First, he announced a sweeping crackdown on online gambling and scam hubs in Sihanoukville, cash machines and money laundering laundromats for powerful Chinese-linked interest groups. Then he delivered the knockout blow, openly hinting that the Ream Naval Base could be opened to the United States. That move was the geopolitical equivalent of pressing a loaded gun to Beijing's temple. In Zhongnanhai, the temperature must have dropped instantly. Chinese leaders realized something deeply unsettling. This wasn't empty talk. Cambodia had been hit hard, abandoned at a critical moment, and was now prepared to act recklessly if necessary. If the U.S. truly gained access to Ream, China's southern strategic vision would collapse. Ream sits at a highly sensitive location on the Gulf of Thailand, a key link in China's string of pearls, the maritime route meant to bypass U.S. naval containment in the South China Sea and the Western Pacific.
The U.S. already has Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, and the Philippines. Add Cambodia, and China is caught in a tightening vice. The moment China's South Sea Fleet ventures out, U.S. warships would be waiting. Worse still was the psychological domino effect. If Cambodia could break free, what would Laos, Myanmar, or heavily indebted African states think? They would realize something dangerous. Simply threatening to pivot to the U.S. is enough to make Beijing panic. Once that belief spreads, the Belt and Road Initiative becomes nothing more than a hollow slogan. That is why the tent and rations flight happened so fast. It was an excuse to show up, to shake hands, to smile for cameras, to signal that relations remain strong, an excuse to soothe Hun Manet's anger, and most importantly, an excuse to block Washington before it moved first. But here's the problem. What does Cambodia actually need? Cambodia needs military deterrence. It needs political guarantees. It needs something that makes Thailand hesitate. What it received, instead, were personal first aid kits. It was like handing chewing gum to someone who's collapsing from hunger and telling them to chew slowly. This episode strips away the illusions. The U.S. doesn't love Cambodia. China doesn't either. One wants to use Cambodia to stab China in the ribs. The other wants Cambodia weak enough to control. The difference is that Hun Manet now understands this. Many once dismissed him as his father's shadow, Beijing's puppet. This episode proves otherwise. He has learned a brutally practical lesson. Being obedient gets you nothing. Sometimes you have to smash a bottle on your own head to get a bowl of porridge. His strategy is a masterclass in tightrope diplomacy. He uses the U.S. to pressure China. If you won't protect me, I'll go with Washington. Then he uses China to bargain with the U.S. Beijing is courting me. If you want access, you'd better pay. So where does this end? Most likely, Cambodia will accept the aid. Why refuse free goods? But it won't close the door to Washington. U.S. warships may not permanently dock, but port visits, military exchanges, and strategic signaling will continue. Trust once broken is hard to repair. A bowl of water already poured out can never be filled again. Beijing understands this, and it has few options left. To keep Cambodia, it will have to offer more money, better weapons, clearer guarantees. At the same time, it will quietly apply pressure, economic leverage, political influence, intelligence networks to pull Phnom Penh back into line. Hun Manet's gambit is a hard lesson for small states everywhere. Never trust the vows of great powers. When core interests are threatened, loyalty evaporates instantly. If you want respect, you need leverage. If you want leverage, you must dare to play, boldly but intelligently. Diplomacy is like bamboo. The roots must be firm, the stalk flexible, the top able to bend with the wind without breaking. Cambodia, once a fragile reed, is learning to become bamboo. Late, perhaps, risky, certainly, but at least it has found the courage to stand up and demand its share. And that, more than tents or warships, is truly what unsettles the great powers.
Thank you for watching this story. If you found it meaningful, please subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this video. And now it's time to say goodbye. Thank you for staying with Societal Stories.